The statute also creates a process for review of the core courses list, which will take place every 4 years. In accordance with the new requirements, faculty committees were convened in the fall of 2023 to make course and course description recommendations for general education core courses that students may take to meet each subject discipline requirement for an associate or baccalaureate degree. The course recommendations were reviewed by the Articulation Coordinating Committee and submitted to the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors for approval at their respective January 2024 meetings. We want to thank all of the faculty members who were a part of that review process for their work on that project. On January 17th, the State Board of Education approved revisions to the rule. And on January 24th, the Board of Governors approved revisions to Regulation 8005. The amended rule and regulation codified the list of general education core course options for students beginning in the fall of 2024. They also set forth requirements for all general education courses and institutional requirements for reporting general education course offerings. So with these updates to the rule and regulation, changes to the general education core would be in effect for the fall of 2024. And then the changes to institutional general education courses will be in effect for the fall of 2025. As part of our responsibility in this process, the statewide course numbering system has been updated with revised course descriptions for each general education core course, which institutions must follow for each general education core course that they offer. And as mentioned previously, going forward, faculty committees appointed by the State Board of Education and Board of Governors will meet every 4 years to review and recommend to the ACC, the State Board of Education and Board of Governors, changes to the core course options. In the next few slides, we'll take a little time to review the actual changes to statutes. Here, the statute 10725 speaks directly to requirements of general education core courses. This section speaks to the 5 discipline areas and the standards that are required for courses that fall into those discipline areas. Again, this speaks to the new section that was created in 10755, where it again speaks to requirements for all general education courses. And in this section, speaks back to 10725, and the requirements for under each discipline area also would apply to institutional general education courses. Whenever applicable, provide instruction on 1, historical background and philosophical foundation of Western civilization and this nation's historical documents. As you review the course descriptions that have been adopted through the review process for the general education core courses, you will see that a lot of this language was used in the creation of those. This section begins to describe the new review process, which will be done annually by post-secondary institutions. This further lays out that process and establishes the December 1 due date that institutions will have to submit their completed reviews of their general education course offerings to the Articulation Coordinating Committee, which will then turn those into the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors for final approval. The next slide speaks to the updates that were made specifically to the rule and regulation. It established a definition for general education and implement general education requirements from the statutes that we've discussed, align general education courses to new statutory language, updated the general education core course list, updated other means to meet general education core requirements, Establish institutional responsibility for updating general education courses and descriptions, and establish a process for annually reporting institutional general education course offerings. The updated rule and regulations speak to situations where students have previously completed courses and appeared on the core course list. This same situation or this same logic will be applied to course changes that will appear on the core list. So for courses newly added to the general education list, students meet this requirement by successful completion of those courses after the start of fall of 2024. And for a course removed from the general education core list, students who successfully complete the course prior to the start of fall of 2024 will meet the requirement for core. Each institution shall annually review all of their general education course offerings to ensure compliance with the general education requirements from statutes 1007-25 and 55 and Rule 6A14.0303 and Board of Governors Regulation 8005. Each institution should make arrangements for its Board of Trustees to approve their general education course offerings annually in order to meet the September 1 submission deadline to the ACC. To assist each institution, the Office of Articulation will provide a spreadsheet of each institution's current general education course offerings, which will be used by the institution to officially submit its new general education course list to the ACC. Here is a sample of what that spreadsheet will look like. It will reflect all of the general education course offerings for the institution, both core and non-core, as they have been indicated in the statewide course numbering system. Here you will find that it lists the institution name, the prefix, level, and course number for the course title as it is entered into SCNS, the credit, and then whether or not it is labeled as a general education core or just a institutional general education requirement. Additionally, on the spreadsheet, you will find some drop-down options, and this is what you will use to indicate, number one, that the review has been completed for each course, and then what changes, if any, have been made to the course. It is important that each course be marked as being reviewed. This is part of what you or your Board of Trustees and your president will sign in a certification form and attest to that the review has been completed. Once proposed changes to institutional general education courses are recorded on the spreadsheet, and corresponding updates should be made to those courses in SCNS prior to the September 1, 2024 submission date. Changes to course offerings within SCNS are initiated by the institution contact at each participating post-secondary institution. Your ICs are trained on this process, and we are also providing a high-level look at all the course change process today, but additionally, you'll be provided with detailed instructions regarding both the spreadsheet as well as making changes in SCNS. If you're unsure who your IC or who all are your ICs at your institution, please contact Articulation either through email or through the phone number provided. This particular screenshot is of a course change that can be made in SCNS as shown below. Information on the left-hand side contains the details of the course as it currently exists in SCNS, and fields on the right-hand side are where ICs make the required changes to a course. ICs must indicate whether a course is identified as general education core under state law, and then general education requirements or the other institutional gen ed courses or any additional courses offered by the institution to meet general education requirements. Should you choose to remove a general education requirement indicator from a course, one would remove the appropriate check mark. Further down on this same form, the description, objectives, and textbook fields may also need to be updated based on new principles for general education and standards for each of the 5 subject areas. If you are deleting information in any of the optional fields, such as prerequisites or co-requisites, you would replace it with the word none. For all course requests, we do ask that you provide comments on what updates have been made. This is for tracking purposes within SCNS, but also for your own institution purposes. And the contact information should be provided for the person submitting the change request, which will typically be the institution's assigned IC. And to complete the change request, you must click on the submit button once you have completed your process, or you have the option to save should you need to return. So this is the actual hands-on process of your review that you will do. Once that is completed, you will move on to your Board of Trustees approval. Upon the institution completing its internal review, its list of general education courses should be presented to and approved by its Board of Trustees. Institutions will be provided a certification form, which I alluded to previously, which they will submit to the Office of Articulation along with their completed review spreadsheet. The certification form must be signed by the institution president and the chair of the Board of Trustees as their attestation of the board's approval. So to look at a timeline for this process, currently, and in the next couple weeks or so, institutions will receive general education review lists or their spreadsheet and their certification form from the Office of Articulation, along with the instruction document or detailed instructions. Between the months of March and August, institutions will review all general education offerings to ensure compliance with statutory requirements. During their review, institutions will complete the review spreadsheet and submit necessary changes to SCNS. And institutions will submit their final general education list to their respective boards of trustees for approval. By September 1 of this year, institutions will submit their completed review spreadsheets and their signed certification form to the Office of Articulation by email. Between the months of September to December, articulation staff in support of Articulation Coordinating Committee will review submissions for compliance with statutory requirements. And by December 1, the ACC will submit institution lists to the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors, respectively, for approval. So what that means for you all is you would first begin your review of general education core offerings at your institutions to ensure compliance with statutory requirements and newly adopted course descriptions. So again, general education core courses should be fully compliant with requirements for the fall of 2024. You will also begin institutional review process upon receiving your core inventory spreadsheet. You will also review institutional general education courses or your other gen ed courses that are non-core to ensure compliance by the fall of 2025. Make any necessary updates regarding these courses within the SCNS. Complete the course inventory spreadsheet and submit for approval by the respective boards of trustees. And upon approval, submit the course inventory and signed certification form to the Office of Articulation. At this time, we will move into a question answer portion. We will please ask that you would use the raise hand function to be recognized to ask a question. So one of the first questions we have received is from Jessica Hines. What gen ed course titles are we supposed to use? The ones in SCNS or the titles on the following FLDOE document? Institutions can use their own course titles. The course prefix and code must follow those in SCNS.
Yes.
One of the next questions we receive is, will civic literacy rule be amended to accept AMH 2010? We are currently working on process of that review and expect a into that process this summer. May I ask if the statewide learning outcomes should be incorporated verbatim into institution courses? So specifically for the updated course descriptions for the Gen Ed core courses, learning outcomes have been implemented into the course description, which institutions are expected to follow. In regards to the new science courses, if a student changes catalog years to fall of 2024 or later and completed the new course prior to that, can it satisfy the core requirement? As stated in the PowerPoint presentation, new courses that have been added, the student would have had to complete it after the start of the fall of 2024. So the question is, can we add courses to our list if we notice they are missing in the original pull from SCNS? You absolutely can add courses to your spreadsheet that you receive. We would ask, there will be instructions that are provided on that full process, but to summarize, you would add those to the end of the course list that is included in your inventory or your spreadsheet, and please enter all necessary information to match the format you are provided. Question is, if there are no institutional changes to the general education, do we need certification forms signed? The answer to that is yes. We are expecting you to review all of the courses. Part of that review, or the completion of that review, is indicated by marking each course on your list as having been reviewed. And then the certification form, which is signed by your president and your board of trustees, is their attestation that they have approved your gen ed course list and also the review has been completed. Question reads, slide 13 mentioned that the course should have been completed before fall of 2024. Is there any exception for student governing catalog? If they started the program with the previous core, can they use SYG 2000, for example, as their core course class is completed after fall of 2024? So as stated, for a course that has been removed from the list, for it to count as core, it will have had to be completed prior to the start of fall of 2024. For any class that was added to the list would have had to be completed after the start of fall of 2024. So the question reads, section 100725 states general education core course options shall consist of a maximum of 5 courses. What is the recommendation for those areas that have more than 5? Shall we eliminate down to 5 or propose adding the additional courses to the core? This specific part of the statute would speak to the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors regarding the amount of courses listed on the core. The list have been approved by those 2 boards. It is up to the institution that you can offer one of each of one of those courses from each discipline area, or you can offer all of those courses. Our next question. So the recommendation is to make changes in SCNS before getting approval from our institution and board of trustees, or should we wait for board of trustees feedback before making SCNS changes? So this is twofold. Number one, changes to gen ed core courses should be made immediately or as soon as possible. Changes to other institutional gen ed courses can be held until after your board of trustees have approved your institution lists. Are there any guidelines for the course review process? So your main guideline is to review statutory requirements and then also any other requirements from either the state board rule or the board of governors regulation respective to your section. We have included those sections here in this PowerPoint, and we'll be happy to supply you with any other resources that you feel you need to make those recommendations or changes to your courses. The ultimate goal is that your courses will be in compliance with these new standards and principles that have been placed into the statute, and then also further through the rule and regulation. Based on your response about AMH 010, is the implementation for that course as civic literacy expected for fall of 2025? As we stated, the review process will be concluded sometime this summer, and then upon approval by both the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors, our expectation is that that would be implemented for the fall of 2024. So any student who takes the AMH 010 after the fall of 2024 would be able to count that as meeting civic literacy. So will the data in the spreadsheet you are going to share with everyone be different from data available now in SCNS? So the list that you will be provided with was pulled from SCNS in the last 2 weeks. So if your institution has made any changes to courses or made any updates, they may not show on the spreadsheet that you will be provided with. However, specifically regarding via flat file download, your institution will need to use the spreadsheet that we are providing, as it also includes the 3 different fields for making your review known to us and indicating changes that have been made or will be made in SCNS. So while you can download your SCNS list, you will need to use the file that we provide to make your review and finalize your submission. So in addition to the attestation form and completed Excel report that are submitted, is the expectation that institutions will also include a list of the other SCS and SUS institutions that offer the core courses, or will SCNS provide report that data? So on top of the spreadsheet that will include your specific institution's course offerings, you will also be provided an additional sheet that will include all institutions' offerings. You can utilize that sheet to determine the number of institutions that offer those courses. Question from Wayne Bowen: may institutions include SYG 2000 as a non-core option in their GEP? Yes, they can. You can continue to use it as a gen ed course at the institution, or it just cannot be offered as a core. Also, with the review process that was done by faculty members, In the beginning of this process, the course description has also been updated for SYG 1000 or 2000, depending on your institution. And you will be advised to use that course description and update yours at the institution according to it. Question from Heather Belmont. Can we implement changes to the institutional gen ed core prior to 2025 and ACC board approval? Can we implement the changes as early as fall of 2024? Gen ed core offerings must be updated by the start of the fall of 2024. Other institutional gen ed courses or non-core courses must be updated by the fall of 2025. And all of this is pending ACC and or further, state board and board of governors approval. From Alicia Alexander, based on the timeline, does this mean the list to be submitted on September 1, 2025 is for the 26-27 catalog year? Just trying to clarify on whether this year's list is intended to cover 2 catalog years, 24-25 and 25-26. So the review that you will do between now and September 1 will be for the fall of 2025. Subsequent years would be for the following fall. Question from Angela Ash, if you could please clarify for the courses newly added to the core list, specifically OCE 001 and GLY 010, is it expected that the institution will update the learning outcomes? And if so, where would those approved outcomes be found? For all of the general education core courses that were reviewed, so the older courses that remained on the list, and for the newly added courses, the faculty committees created new course descriptions, and those course descriptions also came with learning outcomes. You can find those currently in SCNS, and the learning outcomes specifically are included in the course description for the statewide course level of each of these individual courses. We've had several questions regarding grade forgiveness in a couple different areas. We will answer grade forgiveness questions at a separate time. Question from Emily Teets. Will only the SCNS IC be sent the list of general education courses, or will the list be sent to others at the institution? The list of courses will be sent to either university or college leadership. Daniel Miroff, do courses that meet the general education requirement but not core have to be assigned to one of the 5 areas? The answer is yes. They must fall under one of the 5 discipline areas. Question from Marcy Everest. Just to confirm, SLOs can be added to the list on any general education course as long as it doesn't contradict the SLOs listed with the new course descriptions. That is correct. Institutions must use the course description and learning outcome that has been established for the core courses as they are in SCNS. Institutions can add additional content to the course description or the learning outcomes as long as that content does not conflict with the intent or the content itself of the newly established course description or learning outcomes, as well as the requirements from statute. Milagros Garrido, out of 36 hours that need to be completed for the Gen Ed curriculum, one core from the social science is required. How many social science courses are required in addition to the core? The remainder of Gen Ed requirements to complete the 36 hours is left up to the institution to determine. Stephanie Burnett, we offer Anatomy and Physiology 1 under the number BSC 2093. Does that meet core or do the numbers have to match exactly? For it to be offered as a core course, the prefix and number must match the statewide level course as it appears in SCNS, as well as follow the course description that has now been updated in SCNS. Angela Ash, you have your hand raised. Do you have an additional question from what you entered in the Q&A section? Please unmute.
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I wasn't sure how to ask the original question. My apologies. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you. Angela Bryan, do you have a question?
You've answered it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm transitioning to the actual chat portion and looking for questions there. Question from Kathleen C's Volts. Will there be a statewide assessment of the general education core course outcomes? There are no statutory requirements for such an assessment. Elizabeth Rios asked, where can we find the most updated general education core course list? You can find those in both the updated version of the State Board of Education rule and Board of Governors regulation. Okay, it looks like we have gone through all of the questions that have been submitted for now. We want to thank you all for the time that you've given us today. We will be back in touch regarding further instruction. Also, we will be providing the PowerPoint slides that we've gone through today, as well as a recording of today's meeting. And again, as been previously mentioned, you will also be receiving detailed instructions regarding this process that goes even more into detail than what we did at this high-level meeting today. So again, thank you all for joining us. Have a good rest of your day.